Okay, so let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something really fascinating, the geopolitics of weapon sales, especially American weapon sales, and how a country's geography, its actual place on the map, fundamentally shapes its military design and, well, even its alliances.
Absolutely. Our mission today really is to explore why. Why do countries build the weapons they do? What are the contrasting philosophies behind military power, and what are the maybe surprising implications these choices have for, international relationships? It's more than just buying hardware.
Right, so let's start with the U.S. The American way of war seems to be about fighting over there, not over here. That feels like a core principle.
It really is. And it's not new. Our analysis suggests this drive goes back, at least 150 years, maybe more. The goal has always been to keep potential conflict far, far away from American shores, ideally outside the entire Western Hemisphere, if possible.
And you can see that in the weapon systems, can't you?
Yeah.
How does that philosophy translate into, say, a tank or a jet?
Well, it translates directly. We found basically three core ideas driving U.S. weapon design. First, there's this assumption that U.S. forces will often be outnumbered, so the gear has to punch way above its weight. Think about the Abrams tank. It's often called, the most badass tank on the planet. It's designed to take multiple direct hits and keep going.
Wow. Yeah.
Or look at the F-16 fighter jet, incredibly durable. Or the newer F-35, the stealth fighter. They're built tough, built to survive.
So it's about power and resilience because you expect to be facing more enemies.
Exactly. That's number one. Number two, logistics. U.S. forces are often fighting at the very end of incredibly long logistical chains, miles and miles from home. So U.S. military logistics have to be excellent. And the weapons themselves. They need much longer range, keep the fight far from your supply lines, far from your bases.
That makes sense. Long range keeps the danger over there.
Precisely. And third, reinforcing all that is just sheer durability again. These systems have to operate in tough, contested environments and withstand hits. Like we said with the Abrams, the F-16. These aren't just features they decided to add. They're hard lessons. Learned, as the material puts it, with blood and with money over decades.
Okay, so that's the U.S. model. Advanced, durable, long range, designed for expeditionary warfare far from home. How does the Russian approach contrast with that? Their geography is obviously very different.
Totally different. Russia fundamentally expects major conflicts to happen right on its doorstep, on its immediate periphery. So think about what that means. You don't need super long-range systems in the same way. You don't necessarily need that massive, complex logistical tail the U.S. relies on. And maybe you don't need every piece of equipment to be incredibly durable if you can just overwhelm the enemy.
Overwhelm how?
With numbers, mass disposability even. Their focus is often on fielding more jets, more tanks, even if they're cheaper, maybe shorter range. The idea is to overwhelm with quantity. If a target can take, say, 8 hits, the Russian doctrine might be, well, let's send 100 missiles or shells. Something will get through.
Mass over resilience. Got it. So here's where it gets really interesting for you, the listener. If the Russian approach is geared towards near-abroad conflicts with mass, why do European nations, whose potential fights are also largely in their near-abroad, think Ukraine, for example, why do they keep buying U.S. weapons? Weapons that seem, well, kind of inappropriate for their specific geographic needs. We found like half their military buys are American.
It's a huge paradox, isn't it? And there are two main reasons driving it. The first one is pretty straightforward. NATO interoperability. In a major conflict scenario, the understanding is that the U.S. essentially takes operational control of allied European militaries. For that to work seamlessly, everything needs to fit together. The radios, the ammunition, the fuel nozzles, everything. Interoperability is critical, especially for the U.S. with its massive logistical footprint.
Okay, so compatibility for coalition warfare. Makes sense. And the second reason, you mentioned it ties into politics.
Yeah, it's deeper. It's about an implicit security guarantee. Buying American systems, especially big-ticket items, comes with an unspoken understanding. It implies a degree of U.S. commitment, U.S. involvement, U.S. protection. The whole commercial relationship, U.S. manufacturers, technicians, support, training, it builds this deep link. Many see this commercial tie as almost as important, practically speaking, as NATO's Article 5 itself, that core principle of collective defense.
That adds a whole other layer. So it's not just about the hardware specs. But let's take a specific example like the F-35 fighter. Our analysis suggests it's perfect for the U.S. needs stealth, range, advanced sensors. But it also calls it largely pointless for everyone in Europe. Why?
Well, think about it. It has incredible range, potentially more than needed for fighting close to home. It's hugely expensive, over $100 million per plane. And Europe is committing massive sums, like $75 to $80 billion just for the initial purchase, and hundreds of billions more over the plane's life cycle.
For a relatively small number of aircraft.
Exactly. Aircraft arguably not optimized for their most likely threats. It seems like a strategic mismatch based purely on geography and likely scenarios.
And is this causing any rethinking in Europe?
It absolutely is. This is the crucial shift happening now. Recent U.S. political signals, public talk about maybe pulling back from NATO command, questioning support for allies like Ukraine, even threatening allies. Sometimes it's making Europeans nervous. They're starting to seriously question that implicit security guarantee that came with buying American. So now you see active debates across Europe. Should we stop buying so many U.S. systems? Should we invest more in developing our own weapons, ones better suited to our geography, our immediate threats?
So what's the big takeaway here for you? We've seen this really fascinating interplay between geography, military doctrine, weapon design, and political alliances. The aha moment for me isn't just that geography shapes weapons, but how those weapon choices then sort of lock countries into certain dependencies in foreign policy postures, and those dependencies are now being tested.
Right. And this potential shift, this European move away from American weapons, it's not just about defense budgets changing hands. It could genuinely redefine global power dynamics. Think about how these fundamental changes in trust and strategy might reshape alliances, reshape who relies on whom in the coming years. It raises some big questions. What really stands out to you as you hear this?
Definitely something to think about. And that's our deep dive for today.